National Geographic and the Times Picayune. They forecast the apocalypse, said it was coming soon. Preparations must be made, they said. Now is the time. It was years ago, they shouted. Inaction was a crime. They said the dikes must be improved and the wetlands must be seen.
Bringing peace and social justice issues into your living room, piece by piece. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm your host tonight, Pat Miner, and we have I'm joined together tonight by Daoud Nassar, and we're happy to have you with us. We had a little scheduling issues this evening, so I'm in front of the camera instead of behind it, and Jared is behind the camera tonight. Thanks, Jared, for helping out that way. Daoud Nassar is a Palestinian who has been embroiled in a legal battle with the Israeli government for almost 20 years now, didn't you say? Yeah. His little piece of heaven is about how many acres do you have there?
100 acres.
About 100 acres near Bethlehem in Palestine, and it sits on top of a hill. And the Israeli government would like to get a hold of that and build a settlement on it. And unlike most Palestinian families, they are able to prove that that land is theirs by they have some documents that prove that the land was given to them. Daoud will tell you more about this, but he's here in the United States now with a group that they put together called Tent of Nations, and he's going around the United States, and we'll talk more about his tour later, but telling his story, and so that Americans understand part of what's going on in Palestine. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your family and your piece of land?
Yes, thank you for having me here.
Sure.
And my story started actually in 1916 when my grandfather bought this piece of land southwest of Bethlehem. And as you mentioned, it is located on a hill, which is about 3,000 feet above sea level. My grandfather bought it during the Ottoman period. And we are lucky that he registered the land. So we have papers from the Ottoman period, English Mandate period, Jordanian period, and also from Israel after 1967. My grandfather took his wife and children and 3 boys, and they started a new existence in a cave on the property. And at that time, it was a tradition for many Palestinians to live in caves because caves are cool in summer and warm in winter. And so he started to cultivate the land, plant trees, and his children grew up loving this place. And it was for generations. My grandfather died, my father and uncle continued the work he started, and they stayed connected with the land, living there, and they spent all their life living on the farm and trying to protect the land that is given to them by their father. In 1991, we heard by chance that the Israelis are trying to confiscate the land to build a new settlement. And we are located on a hill, and this is a perfect place for establishing a settlement. And so the legal battle started. After 1967, the idea of land confiscation, there are a lot of reasons behind that, but one of them is to declare the land as a state land. Declaring the land as a state land means that the land has no owner. And the Palestinians should prove their ownership to the land. And this was done in our case too. So when they declared it as a state land, we had to go to the court. And it is the military court because the West Bank is under the military control of Israel. So the legal battle started in 1991, and it is running until today. 12 years in front of the military court, and around now 6 years in front of the Supreme Court.
So your case is in the Supreme Court now?
In the Supreme Court, yeah.
And can you talk a little bit more about, we'll talk about the land and what you're doing with the land a little later, but can we talk a little bit about the legal battle itself for a little while?
Of course. When we went to the court in 1991, we went with our lawyer with the papers because we have the deeds that the land is registered under my father's name. And so our lawyer presented the papers. The papers were the Israeli military judge was really shocked to see papers. So the case was immediately postponed, and then they started to put.
Maybe we should explain to our listeners why the judge was shocked to see papers.
Because let us say, during the Ottoman period, many pieces of land in Palestine were not registered, because at that time the Palestinians were poor families and they didn't want to pay property taxes to the Ottomans. Most of them, they refused to register the land, or they registered in a way without telling how much land they have. For example, if somebody had 100 acres on paper, 1 acre. So this is a mistake that done at that time. And there was also another law: if you leave your land abandoned, not cultivated for more than 5 years, it will belong to the state or to the Sultan at that time. So this is the case happening after 1967. So many Palestinians cannot prove ownership on paper. They don't have the documents, the deeds, but they have physical presence. Mm-hmm. They are working the land, cultivating the land. So they are in the eyes of the Israelis or the Israeli law, they are the users of the land, but not the owners. Mm. So with the time, this is starting in the 70s and the 80s, the older generation, they could not go to the farm and work there, and the new generation was busy in working with in the city and industry, or even building houses inside Israel. So with the time, many pieces of land in the West Bank were abandoned, and so it was declared as a state land. Mm. So then the Israelis said, if you have this land, prove it. And that's why many Palestinians could not prove it on the paper. And they said, well, we own this land since generations, my father and grandfather. Then they can say, well, we took aerial photographs in the last 5-6 years, and you were not using the land. So according to the Ottoman law, the land was not used for this period of time, and the state has the right to take it.
And that's how the Israelis have confiscated a lot of Palestinian land.
This is one method. Yes, yeah. And the other is like to declare the area as a security zone or military zone, or for a natural reserve, and so on.
But in your case, your family is able to prove that they have owned the land since 1916.
Right.
And so when you originally took the case into court and presented these documents, the judge was shocked.
Really,
and said,
because it was not expected to have papers. And then, they started to say maybe, well, these papers you have are not for the same place, so we need to check it out. And so they started putting more burdens on us to prove ownership. One of them, they said, we need you to survey the land again. Even we have an old map for the land, goes back to 1922. They said, well, it was done by hands. Somebody was, drawing it. So we need one to be done, to be used with computers. So we had to do one, and we had to pay around $5,000 for that. And in order for a map to be recognized, it should be signed by all neighbors. So we had to look again for our neighbors, to find them again and sign on the map. And they gave us 35 days to do it. And we've done it, we presented. Then the case was postponed a couple of times. Then they said, well, eyewitnesses we need now. We need people who lived there, planted trees. And one time we came with 50 people to the court, and we were standing outside for 5 hours. And then they said, no, we have no time to talk to you today. Come tomorrow, But we did it. We came tomorrow, the next day. And we present, the people, they talk about their experience, and they witnessed that they know this land, they know that we are the owners. And after that, the case was postponed. But on the ground, we had a lot of attacks from the Israeli settlers. They came and they uprooted trees, they damaged our water tank, and so on, in a way to create more physical pressure on us. But we thought we want to defend our land in a non-violent way, keep it from the danger of being confiscated, and at the same time to create